Fala, 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 galerinha do mal, tudo bem com vocês? Bom, eu espero que vocês estejam bem. Bom, gente, no vídeo anterior, que foi o primeiro vídeo do canal, na estreia do canal, eu falei um pouco sobre promessas de ano novo. Ele foi um vídeo um pouco diferente do que eu planejava aqui pro canal, que basicamente vão dar início agora aos projetos que eu tô realmente pensando para o canal neste primeiro momento. Este quadro, ele foi inspirado por um quadro de um canal americano. O nome do canal é DangMattSmith. É um quadro que é antigo lá no canal dele. Eu não sei se ele voltou ou não a fazer, mas até onde eu tava acompanhando, ele tinha parado de fazer os vídeos. Não tinha nenhum lançamento recente dele. Mas basicamente é uma coisa que eu gostei bastante. Na verdade, eu gosto muito de coisas de terror. Sempre que eu posso, tô vendo vídeos, eu tô vendo gameplays de jogos de terror, assistindo coisas de terror. E apesar de às vezes morrer de medo, eu tô lá assistindo porque eu adoro. Vai entender, né, gente? Bora dar início a esse projeto aqui no canal. Então coloquem seus pijamas, peguem a pipoca, assentem-se direitinho no sofá, não apaguem as luzes e sejam todos bem-vindos a Um Pequeno Pesadelo. Os vídeos que eu peguei aqui, provavelmente os próximos vídeos ou alguns deles vão ser do canal Llama Arts. Como eu falei, a descrição vão sempre estar embaixo do vídeo, tanto para vocês acessarem o canal, quanto para vocês acessarem todos os vídeos que eu assisti aqui. E também do canal do Nem, caso vocês queiram assistir. O canal ele é todo em inglês, porque afinal de contas ele é americano, mas se vocês manjarem de inglês, vai falar inglês, vocês podem ir lá. Outra coisa, eu não sei ainda como é que vai ser os vídeos, se eles vão falar em inglês, se vão ter coisas escritas em inglês. Mas independente se tiver escrito, se eles estiverem falando, eu não vou ficar traduzindo no momento do vídeo, até porque não vai dar, né? Ou eu reajo ou eu fico traduzindo pra vocês. Mas com certeza, quando a gente for fazer a edição do vídeo, a gente coloca a legenda pra vocês, beleza? Então vai estar tudo lá pra vocês. Ai, que medo! Vamos lá, gente. Eu vou assistir de luz acesa, né? Porque de luz apagada já é difícil. Ou você pode usar uma lanterninha. Ah, você tá doido? Usar lanterna. Gente, se vocês não tiverem uma pessoa pra abraçar na hora do medo, pegue uma travesseira. Ajuda do mesmo jeito, eu espero.
It was a typical boring day in calculus, only it was Friday, 7th period, meaning the week was almost over and spring break would finally be upon us, so everybody was getting antsy in their seats, I could tell. We didn't have a test that day like a lot of my friends did with their other teachers, so our teacher in the middle of class just decided to start playing games with us on sporkle.com. He was a very laid-back teacher like that. As we were doing some brand logo quiz on Sporkle, I remember the exact moment it happened. Right after my friend answered a question, I remember the exact answer too, Adidas. The dean's voice came through the loudspeaker. He sounded panicked and frantic as he told all the teachers this was not a drill and to go into lockdown. I actually got the chills and I got goosebumps on my arms as our usually laid-back teacher too seemed panicked as he ran to turn off the lights and ushered us to the back corner of the room. We all sat in silence for about 2 minutes, and then the usual buzzing that came from a panel in the back of the room ceased, indicating that the school must have cut all the power. We all looked at each other, realizing this must be serious. A few more minutes of waiting later, we heard a man screaming at the top of his lungs coming down the hallway. 2 girls in the class actually started crying, which made all of us even more scared. As the screaming got closer to the classroom, the lunatic-sounding man started banging on the lockers while screaming, "I'll kill all of you." It was at that moment that I started to fear for my life. My teacher shushed us as we all looked at each other to see our peers' reactions. The banging then moved from the lockers to our classroom door, and that's when one of the crying girls screamed no. The banging on the door only grew worse as the man started screaming, "Open up." 2 of the girls in the class were crying out loud now. It felt like an eternity that man was pounding at the door, but eventually he finally continued down the hallway, screaming like a mentally insane person until we could not hear him anymore. I'd say 10 minutes later, though it felt like half an hour given the situation, the dean came back on the loudspeaker explaining the situation, which was surprising for him to do. He explained that some apparently mentally unstable person entered the building and assaulted the woman sitting at the front desk, causing her to flee the building screaming, and staff wasn't sure if the man was armed or not. Now this was before the school had cameras or could afford proper security, so the school was wide open to something like this happening. The staff had done a sweep of all the hallways and classrooms and couldn't find him, so the dean instructed the teachers to resume teaching but to keep all the doors locked, and to not let any students leave for any reasons. The most disturbing part, however, is that one of the janitors working the night shift found the man sleeping in one of the storage closets near the back end of the school, and according to rumors that were spread by my peers, sticking out of his pocket was a .44 Magnum. The janitor must have done something stupid to wake him up, for example, leaving the closet door open, because by the time a police officer could arrive on the scene, the man was gone. My entire class, as far as I know, to this day, has no idea if this man was ever found, but I like to think that right now, he's being given the proper help that he needs.
Ok, eu voltaria tão cedo pra aquela escola. Meu Deus do céu. Que horror. Ai, gente, é sério, se eu escuto alguém gritando, chorando, pedindo pra ajuda, socorro, eu acho que eu tô gritando junto. Nossa, não ia dar certo. Definitivamente não ia dar certo. Eu entro em pânico. Se eu vejo alguém chorando, eu já choro junto. Gente, eu falei pra vocês pegarem a pipoca, eu esqueci da minha, ó. Bom, vamos começar o próximo então.
I was out doing a delivery one late night. It was probably the longest drive I had ever taken for a pizza delivery. From the pizza place I worked at, it was a 20-minute drive, which isn't too crazy out where I live. Plus, they ordered 4 large pies, so I figured it was a party and I would get a much bigger tip. Navigating the dirt roads at night was always annoying though. I pulled up to the given address. It was some old, sketchy-looking building, literally in the middle of a forest clearing. There were no cars parked anywhere, or any lights on. I put my car in park and called my boss. I asked him to reread the address at least 3 times to make sure I typed it in right, but that checked out. I could tell he was in a really bitchy mood, and he told me to at least knock on the door and check it out. He would normally get mad if we took back 1 pie, but I was afraid of what he would do if I brought back 4. I was insanely unnerved, but got out anyway and forced myself to the front door of the building. There was no doorbell, so I just knocked really hard. I heard nothing and didn't really expect to hear anything. I was extremely disappointed, not because nobody answered the door, but because I was realizing that it was all a waste of time and gas. I knocked 1 more time out of desperation, and then began to hear some kind of rustling noises from inside of the building. I knocked again and yelled that I was the pizza guy. There was silence now. I felt a bit more uncomfortable now than before. But before I could turn around, I noticed something at the window. There was someone looking through the window. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. All I noticed were their eyes. Their eyes were open wider than I knew possible, staring intently at me. I was disturbed enough by this and dropped the pizzas and ran back to my car. The shitty thing wouldn't start until turning the key for the 3rd time. I drove off the grass and back onto the dirt road, but I felt the car rocking about, shaking and bumping. Something wasn't right. I didn't make it far from the building before I started hearing a sharp scraping sound coming from outside. There was so much resistance that I couldn't even drive. The car came to a stop. I got out of the car to check what the hell was wrong. A chill ran up my spine as I began to feel like my heart was constantly skipping beats. My tires had been slashed and had completely fallen off the rim.
Ok.
Not just the front though.
Ok.
All
Agora ele tá
four
preso.
tires were slashed. I realized somebody did this when I was
Na
knocking
estrada,
on the door
no
to
meio
that
do nada.
building. Instead of running, I got back in the car and locked the doors.
Eu faria a mesma coisa.
I was so close to that building,
O carro é o
I
lugar mais
could
seguro.
practically see it from where I was, if it weren't for the trees blocking the view. I dialed 911 and explained everything to the operator. She told me the cops would be over as soon as possible and that I need to stay hidden. I asked her if it was advisable to stay in the car or run, and she told me it would be best to stay in the car with the door locked. She asked me to stay on the line with her until the cops arrived. My whole body was shaking. In all directions, there was nothing but dark, seemingly endless
Não,
forest.
estrada deserta quando passa
I knew it would
um
take
carro.
forever for the cops to get there. I was not comfortable with sitting in that car so close to whoever did this. The next part, though, is what utterly destroyed me. It still shakes me to this day, and I hope nobody
Assim, pelo menos
ever
é um carro,
has
não
to
é uma moto.
experience this kind of fear. As I was scanning all the windows, making sure nobody was outside, I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was the same person I saw at that window. Eyes open wider than ever.
Meu, que bizarro.
I could see now that it was a woman, and I could ever so slightly see a smile begin to spread across her face. I opened my door and full-on sprinted into the woods, not caring how much noise I made. I ran until I was out of breath, which didn't take long, and I hid behind a
Assim,
giant
correr é uma
log
boa
on the
ideia, mas
ground.
corre pela
I
estrada,
tried to
você vai
cover
no
my
meio da
loud breathing with
floresta.
my hand
Vai saber
as
o
I
que tem lá
waited
dentro.
and waited
Mano, que
for what
bizarro.
felt
Que
like
bizarro, que
hours
bizarro.
until I finally heard sirens in the distance. I gathered up all the stamina I had left to run all the way back in the direction of the dirt road. Eventually, the glowing red and blue lights came into view, and I had never felt better in my life. They were parked in front of my car, investigating with flashlights. I came out yelling at them like a lunatic to help me. I fell to the floor and started to gag, almost throwing up from running so much. They picked me up and began to question me, to which I explained everything to the best of my ability. One of the two cars drove over to the building, and the two officers began to search the building. They came back with nothing except for a couple of spiky objects. These objects were exactly the same as the ones used to slash my tires. The cops guessed that it was some kind of sick, demented couple, being that I saw the woman, but unfortunately they were never found, and that still kills me to this day. I obviously quit my job right after that and started working at a local grocery store. I know that I'll never forget seeing
Certamente,
that
depois
woman
dessa eu
at
nunca
the
mais
back of my
trabalharia
car.
como delivery. Nossa, que horrível. Ai, que horror. Ela tava lá. Assim, tenso. Tenso. Mas eu acho que é tenso também porque ela poderia, sei lá, né, ter passado por uma situação muito complicada. Então, vai saber o que ela passou por naquela situação. Ai, gente, que horror. Ai, eu morro de muitas coisas. Na verdade, eu tô morrendo de medo, não sei nem se eu quero o próximo. Beleza, gente, vamos pro próximo. Já tô com o coração na mão. Aí, problemas técnicos. Deixa eu voltar aqui. Beleza.
This happened a week ago. Up until a few days ago, I went to a small, local gym in my now previous New Jersey town called Black Bear Fitness. One day, I had the misfortune of running into some skinny, awkward, yet creepy-looking kid, probably 18 years old. He didn't look like he belonged in
Eu
the
já não
gym
gosto de
at all.
academia. Ainda vou ver coisas de
I had
terror de
headphones in
academia.
when I was doing my
Assim que eu
set,
não...
when I heard him saying
vou
something
voltar a
to me,
ser
but it was
fit,
muffled by the music. I was already annoyed with this kid, given that he was breaking an unwritten rule of the gym. Don't try to talk to somebody when they're doing their sets. I took my time finishing my set, and then took my headphones out to ask if he needed something. Then he started acting like I looked familiar, but right away I knew this kid was just trying some pathetic attempt at making friends. I assured him I didn't, but the kid wouldn't stop talking to me. I'll skip most of the conversation, but eventually he actually asked me for my Instagram and Snapchat, weirdly enough, and for whatever reason I gave them to him, instead of just saying something like, buddy, I'm trying to work out, or I don't have social media. After I gave him my Snapchat and Instagram, however, I did kind of urge him to let me resume my workout. He finally seemed to get the message and walked away. Not without saying bye like 3 times though.
Stalker?
That night I got a snap on my phone saying from Sean. I immediately sighed and said, oh no. Just wondering why the hell the kid would snap me.
Ai, que susto.
I opened the snap,
Caralho.
and the kid was in a creepy, weird pose, face way too close to the camera, with his head resting in his hand and a half smile on his face. The text over the picture was hey with 2 Y's. I muttered the words, what the fuck? For the record, I'm a guy, which made this even more weird. My thought process was, I've had enough of this loser already. I'm gonna remove him and make it clear I don't want to talk if I see him at the gym again. And so I did. I removed him minutes after he sent that snap. I'm sure not even a minute later, again a message popped up on my phone, saying Snapchat from Sean. I waited a few minutes before opening it. This one was even creepier. Now the kid was sitting up on his bed, no smile, more of a surprised, angry expression. The text over the image said, why did you remove me? Now I went as far as to block him, meaning he couldn't snap me anymore. And that was that. I threw my phone on the desk and sighed out of relief. Half an hour later, my phone goes off, saying Sean added you as a friend, and then Snapchat from Sean. He actually made a new account. I opened the snap and felt my heart drop. It was a picture of my front lawn. The text over it, answer me bitch. The first thing I could think of was, how did he find my address? Then I realized, Snapchat made that new map feature that lets you see where your friends are. Somehow I had the balls to open the window to see outside. I shut the window and the blinds and started considering calling 911. There was a sound of taps on the window. I took a deep breath, and with one swift motion, I pulled up the blind and the window at the same time and pulled the kid into my room by his neck. I punched him in the face a few times before he was out cold. Now I called 911. By the time they arrived, he was awake, cursing me out, promising he'd be back and kill me. The cops heard it all. I didn't even have to make a case. The kid was an idiot. Luckily, the timing of this worked out well, because I just moved a couple days ago out of state. Only thing that worries me, I don't want to have to make a new Snapchat account, but anytime somebody new adds me on the app, I'll never know if it's secretly that Sean kid again.
Beleza, gente. Esses foram os vídeos e... caramba, que horror. Bom, gente, então é isso. Os 3 são assustadores da sua maneira. O primeiro parece algo muito mais próximo da nossa realidade, até porque a gente tem conhecimento de alguns desses massacres que realmente aconteceram dentro de escolas, em lugares onde as pessoas foram lá e simplesmente mataram muitas pessoas. O segundo ainda tem um pouco mais de realidade, porque realmente tem pessoas, às vezes, que tem algum distúrbio, alguma coisa, às vezes fazem fura pneu, risca carro, taca pedrinha. E o último também, né? Porque, querendo ou não, é assustador do mesmo jeito. Alguém, sei lá, age como se fosse seu melhor amigo, nunca te viu na vida, pede seu contato, de repente tá lá te assombrando na sua própria casa. Ai, assustador, gente. Bom, esse foi o vídeo de hoje, espero que vocês tenham gostado. Deixem aqui nos comentários o que vocês acharam, se vocês gostaram, qual dos 3 vocês tiveram mais medo. Deem like, compartilhe e ative o sininho. Até a próxima. Tchau!